Our investigation discovered some Minnesota schools don't have any idea about the amount of lead that could be in their drinking water. We asked Minneapolis Public Schools to see their test results. This document shows 43 buildings the district identified from elementary to high school with elevated lead levels. It's got to keep you up at night.
It does a little bit.
Lee Setter is tasked with keeping track of the district's lead water plan.
Do you notify parents at the beginning of the year? Does this go in
There's
a
not
report?
a formal notification. I think that we don't send out, certainly all of this information is available upon request.
Minnesota's Department of Health guidelines say each tap or fixture providing water for drinking or food preparation should be tested at least every 5 years. Records show most Minneapolis public schools were last tested back in 1998.
Do you feel as though you need to start testing more of these schools?
There's no question that we're in the process of doing that.
What does it cost? The district says it runs $200 per building. In the meantime, to reduce lead levels, the state suggests a flushing program, which the district says they've followed for 18 years. While your kids are getting ready for school, custodians are supposed to run fountains and drain lines.
Has it been missed sometimes, or?
I guess I can't answer that. We're not out in every building every morning, but I think that most people in our district understand the importance of it. Here's to document their participation.
Setter showed us the custodian's flush log from Lake Harriet Upper School where we met him. You can see the boxes were all checked.
I can guarantee them that the district cares deeply about the safety and health of our students, and that we've implemented a very comprehensive program to address this problem.
Parents really have to hold schools' feet to the fire to make sure this problem is fixed.
Dr. Mark Edwards, a civil and environmental engineering professor, and his team from Virginia Tech University got involved early on with the Flint, Michigan water crisis.
It's an outrage that in this country we have no laws that protect children in schools from any level of lead in water.
Edwards says there are only government suggestions when it comes to school testing.
There could be hazardous waste levels of lead coming out of the tap of a kindergarten classroom. That's not illegal.
Our team reached out to more than 600 Minnesota schools for test results. Records showed nearly 1 out of 4 not following state testing guidelines. I showed Edwards some of the lead levels.
This is from a middle school, South Metro in the Twin Cities, a drinking fountain, 942. Another drinking fountain, 524. Should parents be concerned about those numbers?
Absolutely. Yeah. One drink from those fountains. That's a health concern.
One drink.
One drink. That's too much lead. That's unacceptable lead by any standard.
Welcome back. We're in the lab of Dr. Mark Edwards in Blacksburg, Virginia. His team helped expose problems with Flint, Michigan's water.
Unfortunately, the issue of lead in school water was pretty much ignored until the Flint disaster early this year.
Before the break, we showed him 2013 test results provided to us from District 191, Burnsville, Eagan, Savage.
One drink from those fountains. That's a health concern.
At Joseph Nicolet Junior High School, reports showed a water fountain at 942 and another one at 524 parts per billion.
If you're over 20 parts per billion, if you're drinking that water on a regular basis, that's a cause for concern.
Minnesota's Department of Health agrees that schools should take corrective action at that level. Back to those high results from District 191, in an email, a school official wrote, those fountains were removed from service. At other locations, signs have been posted indicating the need for flushing prior to using the fixture. Our data request revealed other districts not following the state's 5-year guideline. The Centennial District in Anoka County told us they tested last in 1998. None were high. Since they get municipal water that does check for lead, they do not do their own tests. We found South Washington County schools, that includes the city of Woodbury, haven't tested in 16 years. The district declined our request to explain on camera. Instead, more than a month after we first requested data, an email came in saying testing was now scheduled, going on to tell us because the high cost of testing is prohibitive and because it's not a mandate, rather a recommendation, other facility needs have been addressed over time.
It is a little surprising to me to hear that there are systems that have not tested for very long periods of time.
We shared some of the findings about schools failing to follow state guidelines with Assistant Health Commissioner Paul Allwood.
Our guidelines are voluntary. Compliance is voluntary. And so among the things that we are, discussing and considering is whether there needs to be additional authority.
St. Paul Public Schools is the only district we found that has devices like the one you see behind me to test for lead in water and get results immediately. While they had most results in hand, records show it took time to turn off some fixtures with high lead. 5 Eyewitness News reviewed lead in water testing results for more than 600 schools and discovered that 1 out of 4 were not following the state's guideline to test for lead. St. Paul Public Schools did not make that failing to test list, having tested all buildings this year. Records showed 233 fixtures with high levels of lead. We questioned the district to find out when they took corrective action to address the problems.
The speed and the lower cost was really important to us.
I sat down with Jeff Connell, who was part of a team that used these new water testing machines to check most of the district's 6,500 fixtures for lead.
This gives us results instantaneously.
Wow. Okay. So as soon as you put in that water, you wait a couple minutes and you know if you've got high lead?
Yes, you do.
The lead level shows up right on the device, but in an email, the district says they did not turn off water fixtures with elevated lead immediately.
We saved some of the labeling on the shutdown for those 230 some fixtures that failed the first flush. We did most of that work in July and August.
So after the kids left?
After the kids left.
So were any kids drinking out of those fountains that tested high during the school year before those signs went up?
I don't know that.
The district says it was always its intent to get data first from every school before implementing corrective actions.
Instead of just running around doing one here or one there, we wanted to do a more systematic approach, making sure we prioritize things properly.
At one of 9 school buildings with elevated lead in some fountains and faucets, Bruce Vento Elementary, kids and staff may have possibly drank from high-level fixtures and had no idea. District records show testing took place April 24th. That's when they found fixtures above the state's correction level of 20 parts per billion, including these 2 fountains. But the district says those fixtures were not turned off. The school year came to an end June 10th. It wasn't until mid-July when the district finished testing every school that work began on problems. We asked the district when was Vento turned off. In an email, the district says they don't know the exact date Vento's high fixtures were turned off, but say it was sometime in late July into August. That same month, warning signs went up at Vento. The district wrote to me saying they follow Minnesota's Department of Health guidelines. Once tested, initiate a corrective action plan, including flushing or replacement of fixtures. This is the approach that SPPS took. Before the bell rang, I talked to a couple of parents outside Bruce Vento this week. Do you wish you knew right away?
Yeah. If I knew right away, I would have done something about it too.
Wish they took action on the spot.
They should have. Yes, right there and then. Of course, because, the question would be, it's not your children attending this school, it's our children.
A district spokesperson says the state provides no timeline for when a school has to take corrective action. The next time St. Paul Public Schools test, they tell me corrections will be made as they go. They've hired 4 new plumbers just to deal with lead issues and to help install new filtered drinking fountains in schools. I should point out 96.5% of the district's fixtures pass testing, including most fountains. Eric Chaloux, 5 Eyewitness News. Nearly 25% of Minnesota schools we surveyed are not following state guidelines for water testing for lead. That number did not sit well with parents or lawmakers. Our kids drink from water fountains every school day, but not every school administrator knows what's coming out of the fountain.
It's kind of scary thinking something so minimal, something so easy that they don't check for.
Parent Kimmy Coopit learned her school district that her older kids attend, Centennial in Anoka County, hasn't tested for lead according to records since '98. The district told us back then their results were not high since they get municipal water that does check for lead, so they don't do their own tests. Minnesota's Department of Health guidelines say each tap or fixture providing water for drinking or food preparation should be tested at least every 5 years. But that's not happening based on data provided to 5 Eyewitness News from 600 schools.
Senator, after seeing what we exposed last night, what's your reaction to it?
Disappointment that we have not, as a state, been more aggressive about addressing this.
State Senator John Marty sits on the powerful Finance Committee in St. Paul.
When you go back in January, this is something you'd like to bring up?
I want to make sure this is addressed.
Senator Marty says other states are debating taking action on required testing. He wants Minnesota to be next.
But this is public health, and this is essential. And I don't think we have an option but to try and address this.
Unfortunately, the issue of lead in school water was pretty much ignored until the Flint disaster.
Dr. Mark Edwards helped expose the lead water crisis in Flint, Michigan. He says it's crucial that schools test for lead to protect a child's growing brain.
The harm from lead exposure, it's irreversible. And there's nothing that we can do about what happened in the past.
While at his lab, he told me there needs to be laws, not just guidelines, that require testing at schools.
We really owe it to them to make sure it's safe.
Congressman Keith Ellison called elevated levels troubling from all reports. He's pushing a bill in Washington that would require schools to test as well. We'll follow the developments in D.C. and in St. Paul when it comes to testing your kids' schools for lead. Eric Chaloux, 5 Eyewitness News.